Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on This is the Day. My name is Medri Nyambura. We appreciate you for making the time. So a couple of years ago, as a country, we were in a fix that looked too dark to come out of, but one man remained the hope for all of us. His name, though he might be fallen, he still remains etched in our memories because of what he did for us. The former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Let me tell you, when the news of his death came out, I was so worried. I felt like we still haven't paid him enough, but again, he's in a better place right now. So today we talk about 10 years later, are we more peaceful? Is our country more stable? And in studio, I have two amazing people. Again, good energy. Thank you guys for coming. I have Daisy, Amdani, and Jim India, like the country. Welcome to the millennials age. Karibuni sana.
Asante sana.
So I'll start with you, Daisy. Is Kenya peaceful right now?
I think that in the context with which people think of peace, in terms of the absence of conflict,
yes,
Kenya is peaceful.
Okay.
But when you look at what peace really means, and in terms of the sustainable kind of peace, where it's not just an absence of conflict, but also a situation where people are contented in what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that we are so not out of the woods yet, because we have an uneasy peace. We have huge gap, between the wealthy and the poor.
That's true.
We're not doing very much to address that challenge. We see many people falling off, the economic scale, many people living on the fringes, and those kind of things actually contribute towards conflict.
Yeah.
So I think that in terms of being able to be stable enough to be able to address the challenges that we have, so that we actually end up being really peaceful, we have that kind of peace. But I think that we're not being proactive with the situation that we have.
Okay, and we'll be talking about some of those challenges that threaten our peace. Sir, are we peaceful?
Daisy has spoken about the structural kind of violence, the kind that is economic. And when we think about the absence of war, of course, we do not have much of it. But we actually do, because maybe when you think about Kenya, you think about Nairobi. But when you go to the borders of places like Turkana, when you go to places like the Kurias and the Kipsigis, when you go to Mount Elgon, there is a lot of war going on in those parts of the country.
Okay.
And so the peace that we're talking about, and most of it has to do with land, most of it has to do with distribution of resources.
Yeah.
And so when the kind of peace that we're talking about is, from a Nairobi point of view, looks peaceful, from the absence of war, but also as a Nairobian or as anyone living in an urban area, if you think about it from an economic point of view, then you realize that there's a lot of violence that is being meted against the people in this country, which is economic kind of violence. So in that aspect, I would say our peace is, maybe if you're living in utopia, then you believe that we're actually a peaceful country.
Okay, I like that you mentioned that, because I was wondering, Daisy, is it that the political class is a bit disillusioned with what's happening? Because you'd think 9 billion disappearing would deter the other person from not doing it.
First of all, I think that we like to look at only the political class in terms of the disappearance or the plunder of resources.
Here comes
because
the punches.
it is so we're so focused on the political class as being the problem and also being the solution.
Okay.
But we also don't look at the way the society itself operates, because the political class are able to pull off the kind of heists that they do because they are assisted by those faceless bureaucrats and people within the civil service and within the public service who help them exploit the loopholes.
Okay.
So I think we need to address it from a totally different perspective and begin to look at our value system as a people, because that Kenyans as in general are not outraged when they hear that 9 billion shillings has gone missing. 100 billion, that 30%, this is a statistic that is just churned out as though it's so by the way, that 30% of our budget is lost to corruption and wastage. We should be appalled at that, especially when you consider how many people are affected by the mismanagement of our public funds.
Yeah.
How many people could benefit if our funds were better utilized? But then again, How many people actually go into public service so as to serve? Many people really just go there to plunder, to get onto the gravy train. So we have a major problem, and it's not confined to the political class. Although what we do lack is leadership, decisive leadership,
yes,
to address that challenge. So for me, I will not just squarely blame the political class, because the citizenry also has an expectation from the political class. They're quite happy to receive the hundreds of millions of shillings that are brought to fundraisers that are, they find themselves, one of the complaints we have from many of the female MCAs that we work with is that they wake up in the morning before they've even had a chance to shower. Their homes are full of people seeking handouts, school fees, hospital, burials, weddings, everything. And if you don't give them, then they will badmouth you, you know, and they will spoil your name, and any chance you had of a political career is dampened. So there's a symbiotic relationship, you know, between the corrupt and those that are corrupted. And it is a societal issue.
Okay.
And we must deal with it.
Okay. I hear you. Let me ask, is it us, the Kenyans, who are a bit confused? Because when I hear, if I wake up in the morning and somebody's waiting for a handout, then it means my salary goes away even before it's checked into my account. It means I need to steal to maintain these systems of handouts. Is there hope for changing, or are we stuck in this place?
We're really not stuck. Just before I answer that, one of the greatest problems we have, especially, I have these conversations a lot with young people every day, and somehow someone who's gone to school is not able to relate between going to an election and voting and money getting lost. We somehow do not see the relationship between me voting for person X and money getting lost the following day or the following year, right? Now, because of that level of, let me just call it ignorance, because of that level of ignorance, the political class get away with a lot of things, and then the electorate, we end up complaining for the year. Now, is there hope for us? I think there definitely is hope. And hope is, in number one, just continually engaging and continually having the conversations and continually believing in, especially for me, the young people, that we can relate these issues. That has to be the starting point, that we have to relate the politics of the day and the economic situations that we are seeing. Because how do you explain, for instance, the money gets lost and then the following day you're telling someone the reason why this money is getting lost is because we elected so and so into government? They're telling you, no, every politician is a thief. Every politician, that's the argument I get. Every politician is a thief. Who did you want us to elect?
He was the better thief.
So there is a level in which people are giving up, and people are saying, you know what, they're all thieves. And so when they get into power, we also have to extract from them as much as we can, because it's an extractive system. It's extractive from the politician, but it's also extractive from the electorate.
So you're trying to say we are stealing from ourselves? I'm kidding.
But it's true if
you think about it.
We are stealing from ourselves, and that's what people don't understand.
Yes.
It's a systemic issue, definitely, because even the same voters who complain that, we are being robbed by these politicians that we have put in, are quite happy to facilitate the stealing of elections. I mean, and let's not even go to the IBC, the fancy games they play there. Let's look at what happens at the nominations.
Yes.
We have seen, I mean, really, the complete, what is I don't even know the right word to use without offending people, but we have seen the total corruption of the electoral process, where people are willing, you see people hold up in a room ticking, ballots for a certain candidate, knowing full well that what they're doing is not right, because you can see they've hidden away. They don't want to be caught, or you elect to be used to mete out violence against an opponent and everything, and then we complain about the system. So we have made scamming the system a culture in Kenya. And we don't realize that it's eating into us, because many of the problems that we see are caused by us. as Kenyans. We are part of that problem because when somebody is in, like let's say, the institution responsible for purchase of drugs,
yes,
but because person A comes and tells you, listen, we can do a deal here. You don't care about the quality of this product.
Yes.
You just know that you're going to make money out of it. Whether this product is fit for human consumption, whether it is fake medication, whether it will affect negatively the people who will take it, that is another story. That is how we get contaminated food. I mean, look at the headlines that we've woken up to today. Poisoned rice.
Yes.
Really. But then this poisoned rice has been facilitated by individuals and duty bearers.
Yes.
Because remember that at our ports of entry, we actually have health officers.
Yes.
But these people facilitate the criminal action of concealing that this food is past its sell-by date and no longer fit for human consumption, but even where it has been shipped from. So, you know, it's a human problem.
Yes.
This corruption is, I mean, we're all, as humans, we are prone to corruption.
Okay.
But we are supposed to have systems that safeguard against it to protect others. But when our systems are not working, you know, systems are only as good as the people who operate them.
That's true.
So if we have all this going on, then we must reflect as Kenyans. What is our problem?
Okay.
Because even when we talk about Kofi Annan, it took a foreigner to
come. Exactly.
and sober us up, while politicians were busy trying to. They were contesting their egos there,
Sizing
you
one
know,
another.
And they're pushing their agenda.
Kenyans were dying, and our country was on the brink of disaster.
Yeah.
But that was irrelevant. You stole my vote, I stole my vote, you stole, you did. But nobody's thinking of the bigger picture. And that's actually it. Because everybody in their own small way is stealing, not thinking about the ripple effect and the consequences that it is going to have on the wider society. So if everybody is stealing, you have the people at the counties, you have the people in the executive,
Yes.
you have the politicians. So who is administering the state? Nobody.
Okay.
And we have graduates that are coming into
Out
the
of
work
school.
into you know
the workforce.
into the what ostensibly should be the workforce, but there's no work, there's no employment, there are no economic opportunities, there's nothing, because people are just stealing, and they don't understand that when you do this, you're stealing your own future. Because what have we done to Kenya? What have we done to Kenya? And these are not foreigners who have done it. We may talk about
China and
you
all
know,
those things. Yeah.
but who has allowed them? China have not invaded Kenya. They may have invaded us with their presence and, you know, incentives that people don't really look at the eventual outcome. But we have invited them in.
Okay. And they've used our own character against us.
And you know, the problem is we do not have a moral reference point.
Okay.
We do not have a point where I would say people like a Kofi Annan kind of individual in this country who would be the moral focal point and would say, this is the direction we want to take as a people.
Okay.
And so it's chaos. It is disorder. It is every man for himself.
God for us all.
I don't
I'm
even
not
think
even-
we're involving God here. I don't think God's not in the picture here. It's just one man for himself.
Yes.
And one man and everybody for himself. And so without a moral reference point, that then becomes we in chaos.
Okay.
Really.
Allow the people to think about that as we listen to some music. And then when we come back, we'll talk about the 5-year cycle that we go through, where we toy with peace, then we are peaceful for a second, then we forget, and again 5 years we're back there. You can send in your questions on 22316 or WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. But for now, some music from Far From Home. Beautiful Monday, talking about whether at all Kenya is at peace, what mistakes we're making and how we can correct them. And just to sample a bit of feedback from you, there's someone saying, hi, loving the conversation. I believe that theft is a sign of scarcity mentality because you want to get as much as you can, not only done by our leaders, but also by us among ourselves, looking at all that has been happening of late. However, the root is an anger brought by things that have been handed down from generation to generation. How do we deal with these issues? That question will be coming to you in a few. Also, can we now generalize all politicians are thieves? So we are like Nigeria. In corruption levels. Victor from Mount Elgon, clearly you're not a happy Kenyan. We'll be getting to the solutions in a few, but my question was, every 5 years, I get the sense that we, for lack of a better word, joking with our peace. every politician has come with their supporters. No one cares about Kenya in that moment and in that space. Even we don't care about ourselves. So India, why is it that every 5 years propaganda is thrown everywhere and people throw, sense out of the window?
It's because every 5 years is an opportunity to scramble for resources in this country. Every 5 years, people are positioning themselves who is going to get the largest share of who is going to plunder more, who is going to have the final say on who steals more in this country. And so the stakes are high. The stakes are very, very high for everybody. Yes. All right. Yes. And so it's the chief priests or whatever I can call them, the big shots, the dean of thieves, as Miguna likes to call them, positioning themselves in different corners, one in the blue corner and one in the red corner, and saying whoever gets to win this election gets to call the shots on which infrastructure project is going to construct 1 kilometer of road at 120 million. All right, is going to get to call the shots on who is able to, just blot out and steal 9 billion from NYS, just like so the stakes are very high. So that is why it is the rest of us become pawns, and so we get cramps here and there, and we're happy because of the level of desperation that we have, but we are basically facilitating the dean of thieves to actually get into power and steal from us at the end of the day. Okay,
Daisy, you're smiling the whole time.
I am, because I think it's a multifaceted problem. One, I like what one of the listeners or viewers said, that this whole thieving is a scarcity mentality, and it really is. But it's a scarcity mentality across the board, because it is almost as though we do not understand what elections are about. Remember that we are a republic. What is a republic? A republic is a country where the people are sovereign. The power belongs to the people, okay? And what the people do is they donate, or rather they donate, yes, I suppose you could say donate or lease this power to certain people who are then elected, okay? So your power during elections becomes the process by which legally the citizens transfer or donate their power to the various offices. So the executive, the presidency, governors, and the legislature. So these people are supposed to hold power for the benefit of the people and on behalf of the people. When they do not exercise that power for the benefit of the people can recall that power, can take back that power, or exercise their power directly. Now, nobody seems to understand this because, one, the cycle brings about the worst possible aspects of our character as human beings, because this is where we see it is like the laws are suspended because there's no enforcement of laws. People engage in out and out violence that is criminal in nature, but somehow they get away with it. People engage in corrupt practices, but they get away with it. Why? Because people want to get onto a gravy train, because we have already built a culture that leadership is for plunder, not for service, okay? Even when you look at the way they hold themselves, they even call themselves, by the way, most of these people, when they introduce, they say, I am honorable so-and-so, I am excellency so-and-so, yet these are titles that are given to those offices. So it is me who is the one who should decide whether you are excellency or whether you are honorable. But they ascribe them to themselves, because even look at the way they run us off the road, there is absolutely no concept of service among duty bearers. They are like lords and masters over the people, and they get in for the purposes of plundering, and it is expected, unfortunately, it is expected of them, because you see people negotiating, oh, our tribe must get this, our tribesperson must get that. If we sisi kama kabila fulani tunasema ni wakati wetu. So it's a whole convoluted process where nobody seems to understand what the process is about. And because of that, it threatens the security of the nation, because at that point, it's a game to the death. It is a fight to the death. Because if you win and you get in, you get access to this gravy train. This is why, and I always say this, for me, I look, these people, when they ascend to these positions, they have these things they call homecoming, where they call the whole village and their mother, and they dance away and they celebrate. Hey, watu wetu tumeingia, oh, tumetambulika. You know, it's almost like you eat and I get full.
Yes.
You know, so they call homecoming instead of calling a solemn assembly and saying, you people, you have given me the responsibility of representing you.
Yes.
I pray that I may get wisdom from Yahweh, that I may be able to represent you well, and also make my contribution, my positive contribution to the nation. Have you ever heard any of them saying that? Nobody prays the Solomon prayer.
My MP didn't come back at all.
Some of them, by the way, they disappear. You see them a last scene where, because you see, it's also very transactional.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you guys, you wanted money when we were campaigning, right? So we gave you money.
Yes.
Now I need to go and make my money, and then come back and see you just before 1 year before elections. This is when everything happens.
That's when the roads are fixed.
Roads are fixed.
Exactly.
You see your MP more frequently. Iron roofs, iron sheets, umbrellas, kiosks, street lights, hospitals. Everything gets done in that 1 year. You know. But meanwhile, all this other time, what are they doing? The first order of business, always and without fail, for the last at least 4 parliaments has been what? The minute they land in there, what kind of a salary is this?
Okay.
You know. So they increase their salaries. I mean, there's nowhere where there's no employee who increases their salaries at will. But you see, for them, they know people don't know how to hold them accountable.
Okay.
We as citizens and as voters have been very transactional.
That's true.
You know, so at the end of the day, can I at least make money? I come back and I gonya you again.
India, let me ask you this question. Let me tell you, Daisy, you're challenging people. The SMSs are coming, you promise. I wanted to ask you, India, I feel like in 2007, we had 3 months of tension. From August all the way to October, when you're wondering, are we going to have an election? Are we not going to have it? And my worry for me is, do we learn from our mistakes? I mean, 2007, 1992, 1997, all these things were supposed to teach us lessons. Have we learned?
We seem to learn, definitely, but learn all the wrong things.
Okay.
Because in 2007, for instance, I was 13, all right, and I was living in Mathare.
Okay.
And so I saw the violence, right in front of me at that young age. And some of those scars don't leave you, till adulthood.
Okay.
And you would think that at certain point, the Kikuyu and the Luo would suddenly sober up and realize that this has nothing to do with them. But then you fast forward to 2017, and there is almost similar tensions that are still brewing up, all right? And so I think we do not learn about that the violence that is meted on that we met on ourselves, we are pawns in a larger scheme of things.
Okay.
But also, I think because of the leadership has refused, totally refused. It's not that they're incapable. Sometimes I tell people, it's not that the leadership is incapable. They have simply refused to make lives easy for people. They have simply refused to create opportunities, for the poor. They've refused to, ensure everyone has their own land. Because of that refusal from the leadership, the people now within they have to find a way of surviving each other.
Yes.
And everyone is pushing the other person out of the table so that they can get it for themselves.
Okay.
So I believe we've learned, but we've learned all the wrong things, because every year we're still on the old tribal thing.
Yep.
Every year it's still Mutuetu. Every year everyone is saying,
even now,
I am very
that?
close, so you should let me, because I am. Who told you you're close? We are the people who vote. You've already decided that you're close to the presidency. What's wrong with you?
Yes.
Are you the one who decides to become president in this country?
Well, I don't think the people decide either.
Yeah, that's Daisy, at the risk of having people follow me after work. There's somebody who joked and said there's a list. You guys just need to show up.
In
There's
fact,
already a
I
list.
actually think that the exercise is simply a cover for them to bring out the list. Something is negotiated somewhere, because really, I joke. There's a friend who coined the phrase mathemagics, right? When it comes to elections in Kenya, our electoral management body can't count. I mean, like, seriously, that is when people just don't know how to count, because the figures that are churned out don't make sense.
That is so true.
So, I mean, for me, I just keep thinking, you know, Inda is talking about the things that we learn or that we don't learn, okay? And I say that we don't learn. We have not learned that we are hurting our own future. In fact, if you look at it, the greatest example of how we have not learned is the caliber of leadership that we have over us right now.
That's true.
Whether it is at the county level, whether it is at the national level, you have leadership that actually is not concentrated on looking at ways and means of creating an enabling environment to address the challenges that the ordinary mwananchi is facing. Even when we look at some of the things that are targeted in terms of economic growth, the things that are touted as being revolutionary, but tell me, where do the people fit in that scheme?
Okay.
How do you ensure that the millions of unemployed people actually get employed and are paid more than just starvation wages? Because people literally live from hand to mouth, you know? And not much is being done towards addressing that challenge. We are constantly looking to woo investors, you know? In fact, that's also one thing that is always affected. Many people hold off investing in Kenya 2 years before the elections come because they're like, hey man, these guys don't seem to know how to manage their stuff.
Okay.
So governance is a very critical issue, even in economic growth. And we don't realize that when you have 2 years of economic uncertainty,
yes,
it actually has detrimental effect to your overall economic growth, because it will take you at least 5 years to recoup the time lost, you know, and the expenses that are lost in all this violence and bickering. But we still don't value doing things the right way. So I go back to, can we examine our value system? Do we even understand what we want as Kenya? Like, if I were to ask you, what does it mean to be Kenyan? What is it to be Kenyan? You know, what is the character of Kenya? Do you remember there's a clip that does the rounds of some children who are asked, what is Kenya's greatest contribution? And they said it is corruption, you know. But really, if we were to sit back and ask ourselves individually as Kenyans, what does it mean to be Kenyan? What does the Kenyan state stand for? What do we stand for as a nation and as a people? What guarantees do you have as a citizen? That I am a citizen of Kenya. I have certain guarantees from my government. You know, you've seen, like, let me just use the example of America.
Yes.
You have seen the American government sending help when one of their citizens is kidnapped somewhere. We have Kenyans who come in coffins from faraway lands, having been abused and murdered. And the relations with those countries go on. The country turns a blind eye. Even the families are struggling to bring those bodies home.
That's true.
We celebrate the monies that are sent by Kenyans working in faraway lands. But they have gone there because there are no economic opportunities here in Kenya. And we say that, you know, diaspora remittance is one of the greatest contributions to our economy. Yet, we are not looking at how do we generate productivity as a country. And Kenya remains with immense untapped potential.
So true. Yeah.
But we don't have leaders. We have a redundancy in thinking because the leaders can only think as far as what can they grab, what tender can they do, nothing about how do we make our land productive? How is it that we bring foreigners, we lease to them land for them to produce food to take to their country? And we have Kenyans, 10 million people who are not food secure. What kind of thinking is that?
Daisy, let's think about that as we listen to a song by Big Daddy Weave. Let me tell you, today it's punches, because we need a solution. All that after we listen to that song. We are live on Family TV, also live on Family Radio. And let me tell you, your feedback is coming Very fast. Esther from Umoja, I have gotten your request. We're standing with you. I'll also forward that to Jack Tonomusi for prayer circle. But for now, Benson. Hi, Ben. You're saying, hi, Medrin. Your panelists this evening are right on point, informed, and uncompromising. Feel free to take the compliments. And talking of all the mess that we're in as a people, I've always wondered just where did the rain start beating us? Exactly where did we take the wrong turn? Now, India, I have a question. There's something you've said off air. We have no agenda for ourselves.
Yeah.
Explain.
We have no agenda for ourselves because for the longest time, the lie that has been peddled in this country is about what you call economic rights for the people of this country have never been on the mainstream.
Okay.
And so every time that we go to the ballot, the economy is never on the ballot. We are never voting on the economy. We're always voting on everything else, on our tribes, on people who look like us or people who come, but we're never voting on the economy for this country.
Okay.
And so where it started beating us, for me, or rather, where it started beating us was at independence, where we got flag independence, what someone likes to call flag independence, but we did not. So we got the right to change the flag, but we did not get the right to control our own resources. We did not get the right to even decide. Even in the last election, our results were being held in France. We were voting in Kenya, but someone in France had our, so that's how much you realize that it started beating us long time ago.
Okay.
Even in 2017, we cannot do our own election. Someone else has to monitor. We cannot count, but also we have to vote here, but they have to be kept somewhere else, and we have to wait for them to wake up. So that for me is such a serious issue that we do not, anytime that we're going into an election, we are not saying that for the next 5 years, as the people of this constituency, this is what we want for ourselves.
Okay.
When a county is developing its CIDP, right, and we have an opportunity for public participation, it's never, we do not know what that means, and so we don't show up and say, this is what we want.
Exactly.
So at the end of the 5 years, we cannot audit the governor because you did not expect anything from him. Okay. We did not tell them that we wanted anything. So we are auditing them based on what exactly? Okay. That's where money finds its way into the election, because there's no basis for auditing anyone who is in leadership. Yeah.
Let me tell you, this young man is headed to very, big places. But Daisy, let me ask you this question. We were talking at the office earlier today, and you're saying, commissions that were formed, the reports that were tabled, not implemented, some are still shelved in Parliament, and all it took was a mere handshake for people to feel good about themselves. I am yet to understand what that handshake was all about. But peace to us is sold like a petty thing. So two people shook their hands, and all of a sudden, we are peaceful. Is it that we live in our own bubble?
Well, peace is sold to us as a commodity. Look at what we call, during the electoral period, we were calling them the peacepreneurs, where people were going around and selling peace as a commodity, prayers being led by certain individuals. Don't fight. Kenya is bigger than all of us. But you see, the thing is, it's a cover that is used to pacify the people. Let not the people fight so that we can get our mathematics right and continue to lord it over you. Listen, we have a problem. And as India has said, one, we do not have issues-based politics. Okay. Our politics is personality-driven. So we are always looking for a Messiah-type character. Okay? Yes. And this is what we sought to move away from when the new constitution was put in place. Okay. So that it is not dependent on an individual. We don't want the president is the one who is leading. In this, it is dependent on his goodwill. We have institutions. Remember that the powers of the presidency were divided and they were distributed. They were distributed to counties. They were distributed to independent commissions. The legislature was divorced from the executive so that you have a system of checks and balances. But the people also have a responsibility. While you talk about your rights, remember that as citizens, you have a responsibility. And eternal vigilance is the price that we pay for democracy. That's meaning that we must be active also as citizens to act as a check and balance to ensure that the duty bearers are actually exercising power for the benefit of the people. But if the people themselves don't understand that, then they have no power to give, okay? And this is the situation that we find ourselves in, where we have a leadership that basically runs amok, runs on its own steam, does as it very well pleases, it runs away from accountability. Demands of accountability are met with threats and intimidation. We have seen the emasculation of independent institutions, so now that they are filled by cronies, who then really just act as a rubber stamp for the executive, you know? I mean, so we have a situation where the problem is that the citizen, because the citizen is so key in guaranteeing accountability of the duty bearers. Because if the duty bearers, the day that duty bearers are held to account and they understand that the people understand that they are really the bosses, that it's the people who are the bosses, they will behave themselves. But for now, they behave as the lords of everything because the citizen still doesn't understand that they hold the power. But why? Because the citizen lives at the base of the pyramid. There is the citizens are not able to meet even their basic needs. People live hand to mouth. When you're living hand to mouth, and I come and I start telling you about issues-based politics, and politician Inda is here coming with 50 shillings, which will feed you for today. For today, you know, you will laugh off 50 shillings. But many of us don't understand that kadogo economy that majority of the people thrive on, where you're buying a teaspoon of unga and a teaspoon of oil. You know, you are buying offals, the things that have been discarded and everything. This is how many people live. People don't have stores. They have stocked up for the month.
Pantry.
You know, they live day to day. And people who live day to day cannot understand forecasting for the future. And that's what they have done to the people. That's what bad leadership have done. We set up a system that allows the leadership or duty bearers literally to oppress the people. We have a very oppressive system, and we really need to go back to it, because the Constitution of Kenya 2010, because you started by talking about Kofi Annan. He guided us on the agenda 4 items, and one of them was to address the systemic challenges that allowed for imperial presidency and a leadership that is not accountable. And we have the framework for that in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. But if you look right now, is the Constitution of Kenya 2010 working for us?
Even the question is, do the people read the Constitution? That's an even bigger question.
Not even read the Constitution. Do they understand it? Because when you say that the Constitution binds all of us, it means that we have a responsibility to understand the Constitution, meaning it should even be part of our curriculum at the school level. You know, from your youth, from school, as civics, part of your civics class should be understanding the Constitution, so that you understand your role and responsibility as a citizen, but also the roles and responsibility of duty bearers. But the state has not put any resources towards educating the people. We should be running programs on TV. But you see, remember that the duty bearers know that if you have a woke citizen, a citizen who really understands their rights, their responsibilities, and the responsibilities of duty bearers, they will not get away with the things that they get away with. So I think that we have still a long way to go, but we must unravel the system, because we have not yet dismantled. We have the framework for dismantling the colonial state, but we haven't dismantled it yet. If you look at all state, and the way the state operates, it is still oppressive against the people.
Okay. Indy, you mentioned something. Let me tell you, Daisy today, she is not
Me, I'm telling you, we're in the right place.
I wanted to ask you this. Some of the people who should be checking the system is us, Christians, the three of us. But we were having this discussion off air that it's not happening. It's not, where is the church from the 90s that at least had teeth? That's the church people are looking for. What do we do?
Let me tell you something, Madrid. One is, because of the issues that Daisy has spoken about, it has brought about what today we call, the Bora High kind of mentality. Where people are, of importance is, they actually call it, of importance is aliveness. That provided you're alive, that is all that counts. And so people are so used to the bare minimum. Unajua afadhali, the member of MP alitupatia bursary ya 3,000 for the whole 5 years. Someone says afadhali. And so they're going to vote for you on the basis of afadhali. But on to your question, I think a lot of people have often given the 90s church a lot of credit, which I do not think it deserves.
Okay,
And the reason why
it for us.
I don't think it deserves, because at that time, as has always been said, it was individuals within the church institution.
Yes.
It wasn't the church as a whole. It was snippets, people here and there who decided and who took up the course and who knew their purpose and who knew that at that time, that is what God had put them here on earth for. But we do not have today such voices. You know, the prophetic voice who says, "Thus says the Lord," at this particular time. No one is coming to tell us, in this season that we're in as a country, this is what the Lord says concerning us.
Okay.
All right? Instead, what we have are people who are coming in who are, I think the spirits are willing, but their stomachs are not. Yeah, their spirits might be willing, but their stomachs are not. And so a lot of hungry people, not angry, hungry people in the church who come around and run projects on behalf of proxies and in the name of prayers and whatnot.
Okay.
And so where it went wrong is for some strange reason, we have stopped listening to God.
Okay.
The people tasked, and not all of us are tasked with that responsibilities, but the people who occupy the prophetic offices, the people who occupy the leadership within the church, have, for some reason, we are in a season where we're not hearing what God is saying concerning this country particularly.
Okay.
And because of that, we're in a jungle and in a wilderness where it requires, again, for us to go back to the point of just seeking the Lord and saying, God, we want to hear you once again. For our land, we are crying, and go back to ashes and repent and really, really ask God, speak to us concerning this land.
Do you know the scary part is how long the wilderness could last? Because as long as your hearts are hardened, then you're stuck in the wilderness. Daisy, you have 2 minutes. Wrap this for us.
I really want to pick up where he says, and by the way, the wilderness can last forever. Remember, the people who were rebellious, they died in the wilderness. They did not go into the promised land. And I think that for me, that is the biggest disappointment, that we have a church leadership that has strengthened the hand of the wicked. That instead of rebuking our leaders, instead of correcting them, they pray for them and tell them that they are blessed. They tell them that they welcome ill-gotten gain into the assembly. And you see, the worst thing about this is because they do not rebuke them, these people actually think that Yahweh is on their side. They think that Yahweh is on their side. Yet when you look at the scriptures, Yahweh is very clear about the things that are dear to his heart. The oppressed, the poor, the widow, the orphan, the vulnerable, just weights and measures, leadership that doesn't oppress the people, that is not corrupt, that deals honestly and uprightly with its people. And so the question the church must ask itself, why? It is better for even at least one lone voice that speaks and rebukes the leadership and the people and tells them to turn away, then all these hundreds who are welcoming and screaming and ululating when giving these people pulpits, and yet these people are leading the nation astray. But having said that, that is also one of the signs of the times. Remember that in the last days, the scripture tells us, Paul warned Timothy, he said, people are going to be lovers of themselves, they are going to be covenant breakers, they are going to be truce breakers, evil will prosper. And so it's a symptom of the last days. But because it's a symptom of the last day, we must not be among those. You know, Yeshua said that there must be needs that evil comes, but woe to him through whom it comes. We must not be the vessel that facilitates it or that encourages it. But there is hope. There remains hope. Because I believe that Kenya, if we can turn the situation around if we refuse to be a part of it. And it takes us at an individual level. So if at an individual level, we can stand up and say no and begin to come up with programs that can actually work towards addressing the challenges that are in this country and make our positive contribution. I know that Yahweh would get behind such an initiative and our better days are ahead. But if we continue on this trend, really, it's not magic. You know, they're just some basic fundamentals. It is not magic. If we don't make a change, we will be reading about Kenya in history. Here lies a country destroyed by the greed of its people.
Daisy, allow me to end this here. I wish we had 3 hours. Guys, it was so refreshing to have you. You know, such honesty, and at the same time, we talk about the church as well. Somebody's asking for your full names. Daisy Amdani. I have no idea what your intentions are. But also, Jim, India, thank you so much. Such a refreshing young man. Thank you so much for coming. And here's what I'll say. I won't even water down what they've said. Think about what will be written in the history books about Kenya at the time when you lived in it. Thank you for watching and have a good night.